So, good evening, everyone. This talk's going to be a bit of a hello world for Alexa, something that I've started playing with recently, and I'm kind of really impressed with how quickly you can get something up and running. Most of what I'm showing, I'm not going to do a live demo, because a live demo in 10 minutes is a bit of a risk. But I'm kind of doing a Blue Peter thing of here's something I made earlier. It's also 34 slides in 10 minutes, which means 18 seconds a slide, which, yes, let's go. So, there we go. So, for those that don't know, Alexa is a virtual assistant. And you can go, Alexa, will it rain today?
It might rain in Brighton tonight. There's a 56% chance. You can expect about 2 millimeters.
So, it's a voice-controlled interface and works quite well. And it's an Amazon product, one of a whole variety of different things like this. Alexa, what do you think of Siri?
I'm partial to all AIs.
And it's not quite perfect, because one thing with this particular device is it can't tell the difference between when you're talking about it or when you're talking to it. So I'm going to turn it off for a moment. While I was rehearsing this talk this morning, Alexa suddenly started singing Auld Lang Syne for no reason, so it's best to silence her while you're talking about her. And there's also been, obviously, some quite interesting issues. I don't know if you heard about this. Young girl managed to order a doll's house on Alexa, and after the news article on it, the presenter said, wow, so if you say, Alexa, order me a dollhouse, one turns up, at which point all the Alexas in all the living rooms where this is being played tried to order dolls' houses. So what's interesting about Alexa? Well, firstly, you can add new skills. You can add these little programs to it to make it do new things. It's a hands-free interface. There's no need to tap it. There's no need to touch the device. So if you're in the kitchen, you can ask for a timer. You can ask for conversions between measurements, and some really great potential accessibility gains from this. And it's also a nice, simple way to play with voice user interfaces, which is what's got me starting to dig into this, something that's really, really exciting that's coming up. Alexa works by, you say something, preceded by the wake word Alexa. So Alexa is listening out constantly for her name. When she hears it, she records the next snippet of speech and sends it up to the cloud, where the Alexa engine effectively turns it into a request. This then gets sent to either AWS Lambda or a web service, which then calls the code, works out an appropriate response, and sends that back for Alexa to speak it. So it's basically a simple bot in the same way as a text bot would be, or perhaps a Twitter bot, except that it's got this speech engine basically turning speech into requests and then turning the response into speech. And one of the quite nice things about this is that it's very good at translating lots of different things into a particular request. So if you want to know if it's going to rain, obviously, as I did there, you can ask, will it rain? But you can also just ask Alexa, do I need my umbrella today? And Alexa will give you that pre-recorded spiel about whether it's going to rain. So I started wanting to play with this a bit myself and look into skills. So I decided to pick a nice, simple application. I've been up at the V&A recently and found this tarot deck of the history of the internet. I thought it'd be quite nice to teach Alexa to pick tarot cards, because it's quite a nice little combination of this kind of historic tarot deck and new technology. And there's actually only 2 classes you need to get a basic Alexa skill up and running. The first is the connector between AWS Lambda and Alexa, and the second is the speechlet. The speechlet being the interface that provides the Alexa behavior. So this is the first class, which is the stream handler. All this basically does is tells the code the application ID that's being used. So Alexa sends the request with an application ID, and you need to tell your speechlet, your Lambda code needs to basically know what the expected application IDs are. And here we take the ID from the environment. So that's something that's slightly tricky to set up. The speechlet interface is relatively simple. There's just 4 methods. On launch, so that's when the skill gets opened without any particular command. There's a session end and start method, and there's the on intent method. And this is the one that does the bulk of the work in sort of simple applications. So we have the on intent method being overridden. We get hold of the request. we pull out the intent name. So if you remember, Alexa converts the speech that it hears into an intent, a task that needs to be carried out. And then we simply call the Java class, get hold of a text response there, so what the card is, create a simple card. So the cards are used for responses, which also provide some additional contextual information that can be used in the Alexa app. And there's two things that need to be set up. We need to set up our jar file in AWS Lambda, and we need to set up the Alexa skill that uses that. So the first stage is going to Lambda. Now, has anyone used AWS Lambda yet? So a few people. It's quite nice. It's a serverless environment. So you give it a piece of code. When the request comes in, it triggers the piece of code, runs it, and then discards it. No overheads of dealing with servers. Lovely. So you set up a new blank function in that, and you set it to be triggered by the Alexa skills kit. You do all the basic stuff like filling out the name and the description, and you set the runtime to be a Java 8 environment. And then you basically upload a fat jar containing all the code and all the associated libraries. So that gets uploaded to the Lambda service. And we also set up an environmental variable, the app ID, which is later going to hold the skill ID. This is one that was filled out slightly out of sync. Having set up the Lambda function successfully, you then go through to the Alexa skills kit and use that to configure the connection between Alexa and this Lambda function. So there's various different types of skill you can set up. You can have a flash briefing, which plays some pre-recorded speech. You can have the smart home stuff, or you can have here a custom interaction. And again, you fill out the name, you fill out the invocation name, which is what you're going to use to tell Alexa you want to contact this skill. You set up the endpoint, so give it the identifier of the Lambda function. One thing that few people have fallen afoul of is there's only a couple of regions that's up to work with Alexa, so make sure that you've got that set correctly. Then you need to fill out the intent, so a little bit of a JSON schema here, and you're just basically saying that we have a single intent here, which is a request for a single card. And then you need to show Alexa how to translate bits of speech into the intents. And this ends up being a little bit tedious. You have to come up with all the different things people might say to your skill and translate that into intents. And then finally, you get given an ID once this is configured, and that ID is the thing we then need to copy across to the Lambda service and sets the environmental variable. At that point, you should be able to use this skill that you've created. So going back to the Alexa area, you can enter this test function, type in the utterance. So here we type, give me a card, and we get to see the JSON of the request and response. So that's basically all you need to do to get this up and running. 2 Java classes, a bit of structure, and then it's ready to test. And then we can say, Alexa, ask Taro to give me a card.
Your card is the 7 of Pentacles.
Yeah. So basically that calls our Alexa skill. At the moment, it's only available because it's in development mode. It's only available to the device that's registered to the account that's being used in the Alexa skills kit. But obviously, you can go through certification and set that up and use that. And as we've seen, that works just off those 2 classes. There's a lot of good examples. Like a lot of Amazon stuff, it can be a little fiddly to get working perfectly, but there's some very nice examples in the Alexa Skills Kit SDK. If you don't want to pay out for an Amazon Echo or an Amazon Dot, it's very easy to set one up from a Raspberry Pi. Slightly clunky to get going, but once it works just as well as the normal device, and you can actually change the wake word. There's also an Alexa Skills Workshop happening in Brighton on Monday, which as far as I know, there's still spaces for, so that's an all-day event from, I think, 10 o'clock till 4. So if you Google online, look around, you should be able to find that. And yeah, like I say, if anyone has any questions about Alexa or anything they're playing with, then do give me a shout. I've got Twitter account, email, and a little development blog, and I'd be very interested in chatting about this. So thank you.